Right, good morning ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday the 20th of July 2022. Welcome everybody. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Mr Bradbury, do we have any apologies for absence?
Chairman, I'm not in receipt of any apologies for today's meeting.
Next item is declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Do I have any declarations of interest? For the record, there are none being indicated. Third item is the decision notice of the meeting held on the 15th of June 2022. Is it your wish that I sign those off as a correct record?
Yes.
For the record, there's lots of nods around the room. Moving on then to the leaders' update. Can I just say, by way of preamble, due to an other engagement that I have to, myself and the Chief Executive have to be at, the Chief Executive and I will have to leave this meeting at 20 past 11 if it is still going on, at which eventuality the Deputy Leader will take over the running of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, it's fair to say that there's been a lot happening nationally and locally in the last few weeks, starting with some great news. I was delighted to see Keele named as the best university in the Student Crowd Awards, with Staffordshire University ranked 4th. These awards are based on student reviews and confirm that Staffordshire is one of the best places in the country to study. On a similar theme, more than 80 apprentices were recognised at an annual graduation ceremony last month, including a number working at the County Council, and that's really good news. Apprentices are a crucial part of the workforce and a conveyor belt of talent in the county. We want to see more young people opting for an apprenticeship and more employers taking on apprenticeships and apprentices and realising the many benefits. I'd say at this point my second son, who's in his early 20s, is an apprentice engineer, and it's absolutely bang on for him. So I would strongly recommend it to any young person. In fact, it doesn't matter what age you are, consider an apprenticeship. On Monday, we officially opened the superb Shire Hall Business Centre in Stafford Town Centre. It is the latest addition to our network of easy-let office accommodation in Staffordshire. The building houses 21 unfurnished office units of varying sizes, ideal facilities for start-up and small businesses. And I know the Deputy Leader is extremely keen for any businesses that are interested in taking space to get in touch and get going with your business, because I've been in there. I was in there on Monday myself. It's an absolutely superb facility. Great to see it being brought back into use, and well done to yourself and the team for all the work you did to bring that forward. Doing our bit to make Staffordshire sustainable, this month we are encouraging people to cut down on plastic use or even go plastic free, and you'll have seen that on your opening screen when you turn on your computer at Staffordshire County Council at the moment. If you haven't already, do check out our social media accounts and inspiring examples, including the pupils at Windsor Park Middle School in Uttoxeter, who've made a working greenhouse from plastic bottles. Fantastic. Council staff will also be in Newcastle Town Centre on Friday with an eye-catching plastic-free July event. And thank you, Councillor Tagg, for all the work you're doing there and your team. The cost of living is hitting many Staffordshire families hard right now, with school holidays starting this week. I urge parents on low incomes to take up the offer of free activities and food for their children over the summer. See our website on social media channels for more details. The Enjoy Staffordshire website also includes lots of suggestions for low-cost or no-cost days out across the county this summer. One of the options is the Commonwealth Games Queen's Baton Relay, which passes through the county this month, with events in every Staffordshire district. I know Newcastle had yours on Monday, Lichfield is today, so please do take the opportunity to get involved with the Queen's Baton Relay. I know, colleagues, you will join me in wishing the very best of luck to all our Staffordshire athletes competing in the Games, and I do hope those people who are going to watch the Games, and particularly the mountain biking in Cannock Chase, have a fantastic time. It's going to be a free event, great for anybody who wants to go and watch it. And so on to our next item, ladies and gentlemen, and that is the agenda item number 5, which is the minutes of the Property Subcommittee held on the 6th of July 2022. Are you content that that's an accurate record of the minutes? Thank you, Councillor DeVille. Agenda item number 6 is Staffordshire Means Back to Business, an oral update brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Leader. And you did quite a lot of the economy update in your Leader's update, I think, which I've got a few other things to mention though, and I think it illustrates how much work we do in this area, focusing on the things that we here in Staffordshire can influence, but mindful of the world and national events that do impact on our local economy. So it would be wrong of me not to start with mentioning the impact of inflation, challenges in terms of access to staff, and the general impact of cost of living on our businesses here. But the good news is that Staffordshire businesses are dealing with those challenges very well, and our economy continues to power ahead, which I think is a very good news story to be able to bring to you. This was something that was underlined last week at the Staffordshire Chambers of Commerce Business Awards, where I think it's fair to say the mood was one of genuine celebration of success, but with a determination to continue to power ahead, but a mood of quiet confidence as well. So an interesting but important balance there, because we are mindful of those issues, but we are getting on with the job here in Staffordshire, and the County Council plays an important role in helping our businesses to do the things that they need to do and clearing obstacles out of the way where it's appropriate that local government does help. The leader mentioned the opening of Shire Hall, which I was very proud to open, but it's important to say that work was principally work by our officers. Politicians are very keen to take credit for things sometimes, and it's important to note this is an example as part of our enterprise centre estate, where there was a real need in Stafford. We'd struggled for some time to find a way of delivering this, and our officers identified a great opportunity to bid for funding, put together a great bid, managed a project through very difficult times to bring it in under budget and to launch a fantastic business centre that already is one-third tenanted by a fantastic range of different businesses pre-opening, but with another 13 spaces still to let. A great example of us meeting a need where small business space can be difficult to find in the commercial market. It's also on the back of our broader Back to Business programme, which we launched during the pandemic. And we're talking about small businesses a little bit today, and our startup programme is a notable example of the success of that. So launched last July, we've had over 400 people attend business startup training sessions that the County Council's provided, resulting in 170 new businesses that are up and running and trading. And those SMEs are the backbone of our local business, and that entrepreneurialism combined with the environment that we have here in Staffordshire that's really beneficial towards business growth, even in challenging times, is something that we can feel very pleased that we have here and pleased that we play our role in supporting that. In terms of that support, we do operate at multiple levels. So at a national and international level, we recently launched our investment prospectus, for the first time bringing together all of the opportunities across Staffordshire for investment in a vast range of different development projects. On a regional level, we work very closely with Midlands Engine, and we also directly drive strategic projects such as the A50, A500 corridor, possibly the most important economic corridor, certainly in the Midlands, but one of the most important in the country, around advanced manufacturing, logistics, and energy, particularly hydrogen. And then on a local level, I work with our district and borough colleagues in terms of delivering schemes like Back to Business. Really illustrates the range of work that we do here within the County Council to keep those wheels turning and do the things that local government can properly do. In terms of investing in our local economy, we also do that directly ourselves, and the Shire Hall is a good example of that. And I must just mention, because I failed to mention it earlier, our thanks to the Stoke and Staffordshire Local Enterprise Partnership in their part in delivering that. It's really important that we are looking to regenerate and bring these new buildings back into operation. The Shire Hall is an example of a building where it had fallen out of use. It needed a new purpose as part of the regeneration of one of our town centres, and we were able to find that working in partnership. And we have more of that we're doing, particularly through the Town Deals and Future High Streets Fund in Staffordshire, to help generate that footfall and make sure that there's vibrancy in our towns. Final thing that I'll mention is trends, as I always do. So I'm pleased to say that yet again the figures for universal credit have shown a reduction in the number of claimants we have in Staffordshire, both amongst young people, which has fallen from 4.1% to 3.7%, which is within literally a handful of people is back to the levels that we were at pre-pandemic. And in terms of the general population, our claimant rate now stands at 2.7%, again a fall, and that's versus a regional rate of 4.9% and a national rate of 3.8%. So the Staffordshire economy is doing well. We continue to play our part where it's appropriate, and more strength to the arm of our businesses and the people who work in them who are getting on with the job despite everything that's going on in the world. Thank you, Leader.
There are no recommendations with this report. It's simply an update. Does anybody have any observations they wanted to make, or should we move on to the next agenda item? That's pretty comprehensive, Councillor White. Thank you very much indeed, as always, for that update. Extremely useful and very welcome to hear that the businesses continue to get on with it, as you correctly state. Next item on the agenda is agenda item number 7, approval of Staffordshire County Council's community learning and procurement arrangements 2023 to 2027. Again brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm just working my way down to that report. So my laptop decided to shut itself down whilst I was covering the last item. So please bear with me.
If you wish, I can sing a tune or something like that to entertain the troops.
I do apologise. Okay, so we're there now. I think that's a dangerous path to go down, Leader. Okay, so this is an annual report that we this is a report that we bring to Council on a periodic basis to re-procure our adult learning arrangements. This report covers the period from 2023 to 2027. As colleagues will know, community learning is targeted towards those people in Staffordshire who may need help with core skills. So particularly that's focused on English, mathematics and digital skills. And what we seek to do with our adult learning programme is to offer a variety of different ways where people can engage with developing those skills, either on an individual basis or a family basis. In addition to that, we have a focus on helping people to improve their vocational skills and to improve their employability. So this is adult education with a purpose, and that purpose is to help people to do more with their lives, and particularly to go further in work or to get into work. We've had a challenging but very rewarding period over the last few years as a result of the necessary changes to delivery that came with the restrictions from the pandemic. Adult learning traditionally has been done face-to-face, but we had to move all of our adult learning provision online at the drop of a hat in 2020, which we did very successfully. And what we have sought to do with our new arrangements that we bring here before you today is to try and balance a little bit better a blend between traditional face-to-face learning and online learning. The service at the moment engages with about 3,000 learners, and that is a group of learners from across the county of a variety of ages and with a variety of needs. And the paper before you seeks to provide the best way to enhance that engagement, to bring as many more people as possible into our adult learning service who would benefit from using those services, and to do so in as financially sustainable a manner as possible. The detail of the report I can go through if you want, Leader, but it's there before you. It's relatively straightforward, I think, so I might pause there and invite any questions before I read the recommendations.
Councillor Jessel.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and I very much support this kind of work, because whilst 1.6 million is not a small amount of money, if it helps up to 3,000 people acquire that confidence, that self-confidence and those basic skills to enable them to get into the job market and actually be a useful and constructive contribution to the local economy, I think it's money well spent. It can make a huge difference to people's lives, so I think it's absolutely right that we make that investment. And I'm delighted to see that we're adapting to changing ways of working and not only doing face-to-face but hybrid learning as well, which I'm sure for some people and families is a far more convenient and useful way of doing it. I don't expect you to have the answer today, but I think in the future it would be useful to have some sort of idea of those 3,000 people, how many of those actually do get into employment. That to me is the nub of it. Actually, if we invest in people, that there is some payback further down the line, not only in terms of the economy, but in terms of their self-worth, because I think that's what we're wanting to do, is raise people's ability and confidence to be part of that local economy. So I think that would be useful to have that feedback. Thank you.
Councillor Parry.
Thank you. I've always been quite impressed with the performance management that goes around that contract and the data that comes back to show us, how it's been effective and what impact it's had. But you're right. I think this is about the procurement, but moving forward, the performance management that runs around this is really interesting. My question, though, was to the Deputy Leader about whether this is enough in a sense. Does the demand for this outstrip what we can provide, and does the blended approach that Julia's also mentioned allow additional capacity and greater uptake within the system? Because it really does, I think, fulfill a really, really useful role in helping people to transition from one job to another, or back into employment, or for a variety of reasons. And so, if we can get the maximum bang for a buck, as they say, out of this, would be really useful.
And a final question from me, really, for you is to do with Councillor Jessel's point about confidence. In the 2000s, I was involved in a course which was encouraging women who'd taken a career break to bring up children to get back into the workplace. And the issue was absolutely nothing to do with qualifications, and it was absolutely everything to do with confidence. Being able to take that first step, recognising that you have the skills, you have the ability, but you just have a go. And we may sit here around this table as a confident bunch of politicians who are not scared of saying what they think and getting on with stuff. But for many people who are perhaps out of the workplace for a period of time, confidence is a key issue. So my question is about the emphasis on the confidence building as well as the qualifications. Over to you.
That's great. Thank you for the questions and the comments. So I've just been frantically tapping away on my computer to see if I could find the figures, because we do monitor very closely the outcomes from the adult learning courses that people take on, and I've not been able to pull them up, I'm afraid. But that data is reported through our Prosperous Staffordshire Select Committee every year. I'll happily write to Cabinet to provide it. The in a nutshell version of it is that a significant proportion of the people who do go through our adult learning are people who are seeking to enter the world of work or return to it, often for the reasons that the leader mentioned. And the most common outcomes from participating in our adult learning courses are either entry into employment, entry into volunteering, which is often itself a gateway to paid employment in the future, and taking on further study, which is another one of the key gateways that we're looking to get people through, that they, through a relatively easy access course, that they gain the confidence to do some further study, perhaps at a higher level, again with a view to employment. So those are the key outcomes that we drive. I'll happily write to Cabinet with the details of that, and as I say, we're scrutinised on that annually for our Prosperous Staffordshire Committee as well. But it's all with a purpose. I think that's the key thing with this. We don't spend this money simply to give people an enjoyable evening out. To further people's lives is the real purpose of this. So with that, I'll move on to the recommendations, if I may. So there are two recommendations. First is that Cabinet give approval to conduct an open tender process in line with Staffordshire County Council's procurement regulations and the public contract regulation to put in place a community learning framework ensuring the Council achieves value for money and delivers its community learning and commissioning strategy. And secondly, that Cabinet agrees that the award of the community learning framework and the subsequent call-off contracts relating to annual allocation and distribution of funding are made in consultation with the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, but is delegated to the Director for Economy, Infrastructure and Skills. Those are the recommendations, Leader.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? For the record, that's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item number 8 is the integrated performance report Q1 2022 to 2023. I don't intend to go through my preamble. I'd rather hear from Cabinet members concerning the details around their portfolios as necessary. What I'm going to do is hand straight over to Councillor Parry to take you through the headlines for the integrated performance report of Q1. Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, everyone. This is our first quarter report, integrated finance and performance report for the Council. So colleagues will obviously wish to refer to and speak on and highlight points on their own portfolio. But as far as the overview is concerned in terms of finances aspect of this report, we continue, I think, across the Council to be strong in terms of budgetary control and financial management. So no concerns in that area. We are, however, like lots of councils, pressured in a number of areas and a number of specifics for us, but also some more general areas of financial pressure which are common across the economy at the moment, namely inflation predominantly. And inflation takes many forms, it seems. So it can be different in terms of what aspect of the economy you're dealing in or what supply chain you're dealing with. So we're facing high levels of inflation or cost pressures in some parts of the organisation and less so in others. How long this continues for is difficult for anyone to judge. I've heard some economic forecasters suggesting that by the end of the year things might start to slow down a little bit in terms of inflation. But today we saw the latest inflation figures at over 9%. And clearly this is a global phenomenon rather than an internally generated economic issue, driven probably more like supply shortfall and competition and pressure for demand and therefore increasing prices. Whether the increase in supply at some point will change that and we'll see a difference. But nevertheless, we are dealing with, as we would project, if it stays like this, something in excess of potentially £70 million of inflationary pressures across our MTFS if it continues like this. And clearly, it would be cautious for us to actually concern ourselves that that might be the case. Personally, I wonder whether that is the case and whether actually it will start to bear down on this globally, and therefore we'll benefit from that locally. So that's left us, in a sense, with a new demand, a fresh demand, in the first quarter that we hadn't necessarily predicted at this level when the budget was set. And therefore we've put together an inflation reserve, and we are going to be able to fund some of those areas. In particular, we've put an extra £5 million around children and families because of the inflationary pressures, cost pressures there. In addition, we've also added further £6 million to help our transformation of our children's area, children's services, which was something we were always going to do, but we found that, I think, more challenging and taking longer to achieve, and therefore we've had to support that area of transition further than we had originally anticipated. On top of that, we've agreed that we want to fund more the improvements in our highways contract and our highway services. So I'm proposing this morning to ask you to agree to a recommendation that we put an extra £1 million into highways in terms of dedicated transitional work, costs, improvements, not necessarily in direct frontline material costs, but in terms of that transitional cost that we want to achieve. So overall, the first quarter is a gross, if you like, of £14 million overspend. But as I say, I'll be recommending to you this morning that we do use some earmarked reserves and contingency reserve to actually reduce that figure down. I think it's a reasonable place. We still, I think, in a reasonable position, therefore, at this point in the financial year, compared with the pressures that we've got on the council and the specific pressures that we're trying to deal with in terms of transformation. There are further concerns that we need to sort of be conscious of and focus on and take good decisions on over the next few years, particularly with adult care costs and the cost implications of the Health and Social Care Act, which will put additional cost pressures, significant cost pressures on the council. That's all I have to say for now, Leader, but I would like to come back to those recommendations that I mentioned at the end of the conversation.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton, you've indicated that there's some areas of challenge in your portfolio. Anything further you'd like to say?
There is, thank you. Thank you, Leader. Just the computer took that opportunity to start to close down, just as I wanted to use it. We were, from a children's services perspective, we were subject of a focused visit by Ofsted approximately a month ago. And the result of that, whereas there were some areas that we need to work on, particularly around how we use some of our data and how we do our sort of internal audits. The vast majority of the review indicated that what we were doing was right and appropriate, and in particular that the assessment of young people and children that we get referred to us was right, and that the children that we are subsequently taking into our care is right. Difficulty that we're facing at this moment in time is particularly around placement and being able to place those children in appropriate accommodation because of their the complexity of those children and the market that's out there for finding residential care homes for children, and that's where I think the most serious part of that pressure is coming from. So there is considerable work being done in that area to look across the board as we go forward to be able to ensure that we keep our eye on the ball, and that is addressed. On a more positive but slightly different note, I just want to highlight one other area that's within the in the report that has been presented, and that's around the 27,000 children and families that are benefited from the £5.5 million worth of household support fund over the coming months into the autumn, where we're providing free school meal vouchers for children entitled to free school meals and for care leavers, and helping so far over 1,400 households with direct support around energy bills. And that money is divided a third between children and families, a third for pensioners, and a third across the board. So to sort of summarise, more work to be done in relation to those pressures that we face in children's and families, particularly around those high-end placements.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. And we're fortunate to have you as the portfolio holder, having done so long at it and being so knowledgeable about the subject. It puts us in a really good place. So thank you for all the work you're doing and your team, because we have, of course, transitioned over to a new Director of Children's Services, and that continuity that you provide is excellent. Councillor Jessel and then Councillor Price.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Has been alluded to by Councillor Parry. Whilst this financial year we anticipate breaking even, next financial year with the proposed changes under the Social Care Act will cause major issues without significant additional central government funding. The gap is anticipated about 40 million, and we are using all our avenues to campaign and stress on central government that this will not work without a huge amount of additional investment. So we wait to see what happens and whether they actually still pursue this programme of change. It is a commitment to do that, but you can't have change like this without the relevant financial backing, and that's what we're campaigning for. There has been unprecedented demand, particularly in May, for brokerage for all our services, with a 17% increase on pre-pandemic levels, which are being managed as best as we can, but it does have an impact on some of our response times. The economy locally and the low unemployment figures that we've heard about and people claiming benefits has an impact across all industries. Recruitment and retention is very difficult in what is a tight employment market, not least for social care. And we're working with partners across the county to develop a workforce strategy to try and encourage people who currently aren't in what I would call the caring market to join the workforce and to actually make it an attractive prospect, a rewarding prospect, and also some career structure. So I think that is something we're planning now for the future, because we have an ageing population with a greater needs and obviously greater demands on the employment market, and we do need to ensure that it is seen as an attractive, rewarding career, and that's what we're proposing to do. And the report also highlights that we are again exploring the use of technology, and with some amazingly good feedback. So that is a very positive thing. In terms of a report came to Cabinet a few months ago about us moving to more block booked beds. That programme has slipped, and we will be going out to the market again on a retendering process. But the savings that were due from that process of 1.2 million, it will be found from other areas within the Directorate. So moving from perhaps the slightly negative and the cost pressures that we're all having to put up with, there are some positives. Both Richard and I will be hot-footing up to Newcastle as soon as this meeting finishes to do the Dignity and Care Awards. And this is where we celebrate those people in the caring industries, whether they're our employees or in the private sector, for those individuals who go well above and beyond. And actually some of the stories are heartwarming, and it's incredible. There's one lady who, you know, stayed with the person she was caring for I think it was 27 hours while the ambulance service turned up. You know, it is well above and beyond, and it restores one's faith in human nature when you hear stories like that. So we'll be off to do those awards. So I think that is you know, something we mustn't forget, that there are some incredible people out there who help us deliver these services. Thank you.
The Chief Executive and I have done those Dignity and Care Awards for many years, and you shouldn't underestimate how over the moon they are to see a senior councillor attending their event, recognising the contribution they make. I was always overwhelmed by how delighted people were to see me, which is an unusual thing. Yes, thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Jessel, and good luck with those awards this afternoon. It will be deeply appreciated by those people who are participating in it. I've got Councillor Price and Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. Obviously, the issues or the challenges facing us at the moment are around SEND and SEND improvement, particularly around the timeliness of our educational healthcare plans. So the performance of our educational healthcare plan timeliness continues to be low, where we are currently benchmarking at 58%, and the overall 12-month position for the national benchmark is the same. However, on a more positive note, we are already seeing improvements around the educational healthcare timeliness, and we've also recruited an additional 7 key workers which are now in post, and they are currently receiving training. That performance will be monitored by the SEND service and district operations team. We also continue to respond to the issues highlighted as part of our previous SEND inspection with an accelerated progress plan that has now been approved and positively used as an example of good practice, which the DFE were very pleased to see. Actions are underway and a review of the plan is scheduled to take place later this month. One other positive as well that I really wanted just to mention as it's in here is the council had gone into support and to protect or intervene to support school transport contracts in response to the increase in fuel costs. So currently the council spends roughly 18.3 million a year on transporting children with special educational needs and disabilities, and commissioned services is for 970 routes for pupils entitled to free home to school transport. So to ensure services continued, the council has set aside £1.9 million for a one-off payment and adjusted new contracts for Q1 to reflect high costs for operators. And that's it for me. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg, then Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. First, I'd like to endorse the comments which Mr Parry made. I think about obviously the threat of inflation. We're seeing that rising all the time and the effect upon budgets of across local authorities. And Mr Parry is on top of that, as we all are, as we go forward. And that's really good. I think the really support the extra 1 million into highways as well. I think that's really important. It goes into how we change the way we work on highways. I think it will be a much better way of delivering, key things that people out there in the public recognise, whether it's, getting that pothole filled quickly, whether it's doing more than one pothole in the road and not just leaving the others, and all sorts of things, and getting it done right first time, which is really crucial. I think the first quarter has been a really busy time for my portfolio. We took through Cabinet the Gigabit Strategy, which is going to be that sets the course really for the way we're going to move to that fast internet connection for everybody across the county, and also use the gain share, the money that has come in from the rollout of the superfast to make that happen and to make sure we get out into our rural communities. Second one is we've been delivering on the schemes that have given funding through the Climate Change Action Fund during this period. Across the county, 102 schemes totalling over 52,000, almost £53,000. And just to highlight that scheme has been relaunched again this week. So each county council now has £1,500 to spend on climate change and environmental schemes in their divisions for community groups to apply to. Information about that is on the county council's website, and there's publicity on social media of that. So again, we're launching that now and also running through to February next year to give both members and the public more time to get some applications in for some environment schemes which can really make a difference, and also spread the word about the requirement for net zero and the moves towards a sustainable environment. I think also making business ready is for the world of net zero is really important, and I had the pleasure of attending a couple of weeks ago the SBEN 30th celebration. SBEN is the Staffordshire Business Environment Network, and I was one of the speakers there, and that was established in 1992 as a network for businesses to work together to train, raise awareness and coaching for businesses across Staffordshire to be more environmentally friendly. And of course, as that's progressed, it's now all about getting to net zero. And business can join that for free until April 2023. And over the past 30 years, the organisation has welcomed 377 businesses into its membership. and it funds events, supports programs for getting to net zero, provides training and also business grants. I was also working this year with the Wildlife Trust on tree planting as well in various places. And they also launched their low carbon business evolution programme, which has helped businesses across Staffordshire to save over 1,800 tonnes of carbon annually. And in the future, I think SBEN has a really important role to play, helping organisations for that long-term sustainability and to maximising the benefits of the green agenda for businesses through extra jobs and skilling up their workforce. So for businesses, large and small, I think it's key to help them to get to net zero as we've got our target for 2050 for the entire county. So ourselves as a county council and all councils working with SBEN and businesses will help us to achieve that. So a busy quarter, and I think this agenda is well up and running now. We'll be having a report later in the year refreshing our action plan for net zero going forward. So an exciting time. And as you mentioned, Leader, in Stafford, in Newcastle Town Centre and also in other town centres as well, we'll be launching the plastic, zero plastic campaign. And I'll be there on Friday publicising that. And that's a really important thing, to take that plastic out of the stream as well, which is because our waste, which we create, does cause a large percentage of the carbon which we are emitting within the county. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Williams and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Parry's comments on the MTFS and the way this has been put together. I think it's a great plan, and it also shows that as we are adding to the climate emergency work that we can do from highways, our LED street lighting refit is still going ahead. At the moment, we've got over 15,500 lanterns changed, saving around 644 tonnes of carbon dioxide every year. And when we complete this, we're going to be saving over nearly 1,500 tonnes of carbon dioxide each year, as well as reducing the cost to the taxpayer, because that money won't be as expensive as their LEDs, and it also stops everybody looking quite so yellow when they're walking around their streets. I would also like to thank Cabinet especially, and obviously finances, for the £15.5 million that we've invested in our highways on top of the finances that we already have. I know it's a measured and very appropriate response and amount of investment that we can do, which has been pushed to its limit, but I think that it is the right thing to do, and I also think it will mean that we will be able to continue the works and respond, even though we have inflationary pressures, even though we have financial pressures from government. We will be able to work and respond to address and start to stop the decline of our roads and increase that properly and actively. And as such, I want to also thank Councillor Parry for the extra £1 million revenue that we have. I know I fought hard to get, and I also appreciate that this will affect other areas within the organisation. However, I think this is going to be and will be better managed. It will also ensure that we have better governance and a better finished product for our customers from the way that we are going to use this money. So again, thank you for that. I know it was a hard won fund, but thank you, Leader. That's my part for that.
Still working on that. Councillor Wilson, then Councillor Northcott.
So some really positive things to say within the communities portfolio. As you've all seen and read, events across the county have been unfolding in the last few weeks, including, of course, Ironman, the Queen's Jubilee, and now the Baton Relay, which is ongoing as we speak, and shortly the cycling time trial, which we'll see next month in the south of the county in Cannock. A lot of preparation has been made by officers within the council to facilitate these spectacles, and my thanks goes to them, of course. And as we know, this obviously brings growth to the county and obviously assists the county council. In other areas, our very well used Staffs Connect database, as you can see on the report, the consultation has been undertaken with a view to upgrading it so that we can connect our voluntary organisations with those in our county who need it most. And as you can see as well in the report, the VCSE contract has been awarded and will commence in August, and that will allow people to access £1.8 million of external funding, another way to relieve the pressure on our services. And as you can see in the report, the Trading Standards team is continuing to support our businesses in Staffordshire with over 2,600 engagements with residents and interaction with businesses as well. And that has an absolutely untold financial effect on savings for the county. Many, many more really positive stories to report, but I'll leave you with the one really fantastic piece of work that we're doing in this county and we're continuing to do, and that's the 322 Staffordshire residents who've offered to accommodate 842 Ukrainian families, with 450 now actually here with us in this beautiful county, enjoying everything that we have to offer. So it's fantastic news. And best of all is the children who, all of the children have come into this county, and every single one of them, bar none, has received a school place and received support from us and from this county council. And that's testament to the individuals working here in Staffordshire County Council, and of course testament to all our Staffordshire residents as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'm so glad you raised that. Staffordshire is a place of refuge, a welcoming home to those people and shelter to those people who need it. And the performance of your team and indeed residents of the county has been tremendous in stepping up on that one. So thank you very much indeed for raising it. Now, I'm very keen to hear from Councillor Northcott, because in the background of all this, we can't forget that COVID has not gone away. And I think it's appropriate that Councillor Northcott just gives you a little bit of a pen picture about the situation with COVID, just so that we're mindful of it and we're not ignoring the fact that it's still amongst us. Councillor Northcott.
Thank you, Leader. It is important, as you say, to remind ourselves that this is still having an effect on our county. The actual recorded case rates have risen from the beginning of June from 50 per 100,000 to the beginning of June of 200 per 100,000. But bear in mind that the actual case rate may be many times higher, as the majority of cases is thought to be undiagnosed. The COVID cases remain quite high across the county and roughly inequitable amongst all districts and borough. We have seen actually that the COVID cases of higher to middle-aged older adults, although this is probably the effects of the reflection of the testing behaviour rather than the true prevalence of infection. But the positive thing out of this is that the vaccine uptake is good. 90% of over 50s have had 3 doses. 80% of over 80s have had 4. And that lines up with the NHS's projected rollout of the autumn vaccinations. We haven't got the detail yet of when that actually will be, but it is important to remember that the demand on our hospitals is quite acute at the moment. If we take a sample across Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, it's risen from 70 people being cared for in hospital at the beginning of June to just under 300 this week. So that is something to bear in mind, that the actual work that's still been going on in the NHS and the considerable strain that's been placed under. The rise in infections obviously contributing to an increase in staff absence. We're seeing that obviously in NHS staff absence has increased from 5% from the beginning of June to 7% this week. There's reports from other areas, service areas, that are having similar experiences with staff absences. But the good thing about this is that the vaccination is proving to be a good management device. The overall death rate is around the seasonal average, and I know that for some people is a hard thing to have that discussion about, but it's important to bear in mind where we are in the scheme of things, and how that the COVID vaccination is helping us to pick up the economy, pick up the functionability of all businesses and people living in Staffordshire. And of course, we continue to support the management of COVID outbreaks in particular high-risk settings, predominantly care homes, with about 30 outbreaks there currently in Staffordshire. But on the whole, although it's important to bear in mind that this is having an impact, this isn't going to go away very soon. It's going to be a long haul, and it's important that we still do the basics. You know, we still test ourselves, we keep ourselves safe as possible in terms of mitigating the risks that we put ourselves and families under, and to take the vaccine as offered to help cope with that. I hope that's enough, Leader. Thank you. And by the way, I haven't got COVID, it's asthma.
Thank you. Very reassuring to know that you're on top of the details there, Councillor Northcott. I've got Councillor DeVille, Councillor White, and then Councillor Parry. If you could sum up and give us the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Chairman. In light of Councillor Northcott's comments earlier, I'm delighted to have a negative test this morning. However, Chairman, I don't think the microphone has ever been so welcome. Two common denominators, isn't there, this morning? One is the positivity around this county. Councillor Jessel's right, we have much to be proud of, don't we? I think the other common denominator, and I thank Mr Parry for a comprehensive report this morning. I thank him also for clearly identifying the challenges that we face. And I think in light of those challenges, there's no room for complacency whatsoever, and that's another common denominator around the table, that none of us are complacent. We move forward, Chairman. I think it's an extremely exciting time. The Council remains tremendously ambitious, and I think we move forward looking very, very closely under the microscope at customer service, delivery to our customers, and best value for money. And I think moving forward in this light of no complacency, we'll continue doing it the Staffordshire way. And the Staffordshire way has always been prudence, achieving best value, and achieving added value with all of our works. And whilst those challenges are tremendous for all councils, we'll carry on working in this ambitious way, but cutting a garment according to a cloth, as we've always done, Chairman.
Councillor White and then Councillor Parry.
Thank you very much, Leader. So I'd agree with Mr DeVille that I think it's fitting that we've dwelt on this item for quite some time today, because it does bring together all of the work of the County Council. And one thing that I know we're always very aware of, but many members of the public are not, thankfully, is that the vast majority of our funding from taxpayers goes into supporting a very small number of our citizens who have considerable needs, and where the County Council looks after them and make sure that they are safe, comfortable, and leading dignified and productive lives. But the thing that I think today illustrates is how careful we are to strike a balance between those services and the things that most of our citizens are interested in, that we also are very involved in. So the highways is the one that fills most of our post bags, and I think it's tremendously important that we are straining every sinew to find more resources to put into our highways to transform the way that we do things, because we know that our citizens want that. But it's also things like our work on the environment. I mean, that's something that's something that is pretty much a truth universally acknowledged, isn't it? Now that we need to work very hard to make sure that we're doing the right things in that area, and we contribute a great deal to that. And my portfolio area of economy and skills is another one of those. Good jobs. That's the thing that people want for themselves and for their loved ones. And it is a fortunate position for Staffordshire that we have very low unemployment, but it does create challenges, and those are around making sure that people are in the best jobs for them, but also making sure that we've got people going into the jobs that we need doing. And the point that I'll highlight in the report under the economy and skills is our emerging economic strategy, which is out to consultation at the moment, where one of the key focuses is on good jobs, and good jobs is defined as highly skilled, highly paid and high social value. And to Councillor Jessel's point around social care it's enormously important that we are focusing on getting people into the right jobs. One scheme that I'll highlight with that in mind is our new jobs brokerage product, which is a county council scheme, and it fills a gap between national jobs platforms and things like Job Centre Plus. So it's helping employers in Staffordshire of all types. I was chairing our tourist board yesterday. Tourism sector, good example of another sector that's crying out for staff at the moment because people want to visit Staffordshire. Social care is another one, and what we're aiming to do is to provide a link locally between people, jobs, and skills packages where they need them, and we're rolling that out over the summer. But really important that we balance doing those things that people need, but fewer of our people, and doing the things that our taxpayers see and consider to be important. And I think we've demonstrated today that we're very careful to try and do both of those things well. Thank you, Leader.
It's important to point out that in those areas where we do have challenges, you see in the children's portfolio and the health and care portfolio a very great endeavour to help people to help themselves, because you're better off not being in the system if you can avoid it, because living an independent life gives people meaning, gives them a sense of independence, and we want people to be able to live a life of meaning and independence as best they can. And the work that's being done to encourage people to do that, give them the support to allow them to do that, but at the same time provide the safety net when they can't, is absolutely vital. And I just pay tribute to Councillor Sutton and Councillor Jessel for all the work that goes on in that area, because it is tremendous. And very, very few people outside this room ever get to hear about it. It's really steady work. Councillor Parry, if you'd like to sum up for us, please.
Thank you, Leader. And just wanted to come back, because there's been some discussion around highways and how important that is to communities, etc. I think it's important. I haven't mentioned the capital programme that we've got, but there's £133 million of capital programme across the county, which is money that will flow into the Staffordshire economy in a sense through various schemes. And within that, there's a £67 million highway infrastructure schemes going on. So we are investing large amounts in the highway infrastructure in Staffordshire. But specifically in terms of the numbers that we've mentioned, originally we planned to invest a lot more in roads, and then we realised, obviously, given the way the council finances were moving and the economy was moving, and the lack of understanding about settlements, etc., and local government reform, we took a more cautious approach. And this year, in terms of capital, we put £50 million into capital for highway maintenance. And we've protected that because we recognise that inflation could wipe that investment out, and therefore pointless. You just go back to square one, one step forward and two steps back stuff. So we've protected that with an extra £10 million worth of inflation support into highways to try and protect some of that investment at the same time. So that's, in a sense, in total £25 million in reality of cash that's going in there. And then on the revenue side, in terms of the in-year spending, we agreed, didn't we, in the budget to put £1 million in there to help David and Darryl and their teams to transition the highways set up into a more efficient, bring more in-house, all that sort of thing. We've agreed today, hopefully we will agree today, an extra £1 million to achieve that even further. And lo and behold, we're going to have to protect that one as well with a further £2 million of inflation support to make sure that £2 million doesn't get scooped up by inflation. So that will be a £4 million revenue investment. It's a bit complicated, but it's pointless investing in stuff and then getting wiped out of inflation, and then we're sitting in a year's time thinking, what do we do with that money? Well, guess what? So I think that's a cautious but practical, efficient way of doing it. And we'll have to consider doing that further next year, but time will tell whether we can afford the level of investment that we'd really like to put into roads to kind of get on top of some of those more serious road defects that we need to tackle. So with that, Leader, if I may, I'll move on to the recommendations in the report. He said. No, which tab did I open up of these 14 tabs? Which tab is it? I've got it. It's the right one. So I recommend to Cabinet that Cabinet notes the challenges in performance and advises of any further information and or action required, and that Cabinet approve the allocation of £6 million from the contingency budget to mitigate the pressures in children's services, and the allocation of £5.05 million from the inflation reserve to mitigate pressures caused by increasing prices. Further to the investment in highways agreed in February as part of the council budget and as part of the MTFS, that an additional £1 million is agreed to date allocated to the service on an ongoing basis to be funded from interest earned. I recommend those, Leader.
You sure?
I just turn the page then. As somebody put, yeah, and we're buying a racehorse, a B. But no, that's it.
So you've got 3 recommendations. We are not buying a racehorse. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Well, come on. Thank you. My goodness. That was by the skin of your teeth, wasn't it? Right. Moving on then to the Treasury Management Report for the year ended 31st of March 2022. Vitally important report. Let's all just remind ourselves that it was the Icelandic banking crisis that caused us to have to do Treasury Management Reports, and it just reminds us to keep a careful eye on our money, which is what Councillor Parry and the Treasury Management team do every quarter for us. So, Councillor Parry, if you just give us a quick trot through the Treasury Management Report, be very grateful. If you can find the tab. It's Dobbin at 3:15 at Utoxeter if you're interested.
This is something that we have to report on a quarterly and annual basis in order to fulfil legal requirements. If you remember back in the days of Icelandic banks, etc., councils made some errors, and I think this is now open and transparent. This is the way we actually bank in a sense as a council. Nothing significant, I don't think, to report out of that, Chairman. This will need to go to obviously the full council as our annual report, which we have to do. We continue to do things like, obviously invest in AAA, highly secure investments, and we continue to use cash instead of borrowing where we can. How long that will be able to, we'll be able to continue that as inflation and interest rates move, who knows. I therefore recommend, Chairman, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Councillor Parry? Have you found the tab, or do you want me to do the recommendations, Councillor Parry?
I've got the recommendations.
Okay, far away, please.
Recommendations are A, the Treasury management activities for the year 31st of March 2022, including the prudential indicators outlined in Appendix 4 be noted. Cabinet note and approve the use of the minimum revenue provision at 31st of March 2022 as set out in paragraphs 29 and 30, and Cabinet note and approve the proposed revision in the non-standard investment limits detailed in paragraphs 50, 56 and 57 and Appendix 5 of this report. I move.
You've heard the recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour?
Agreed, Chairman.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on then to agenda item number 10, which is decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. There are 2. The first was done by the Deputy Leader for Cabinet and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, in that he approved the Staffordshire County Council's Community Learning Funding Allocation and Distribution for 2022 to 2023. And the second one was undertaken by Councillor Price, the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND, in that he approved the recommendations of the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman. They are the decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. Agenda item number 11 is the forward plan of key decisions for the period 17th of August 22 to the 21st of December 22. In September in public, and just for noting there is no August Cabinet meeting, we have the Start-up and Step-up Support Delivery Plan, heavily trailed by the Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, who's frantically now waving at me, which means that he's probably got an amendment to this. Fire away, Councillor White.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, in view of the rapid changes in the economic outlook, we do want to carry out some public consultation with businesses before we bring this to Cabinet, so it will move back in the agenda by a couple of months.
Do love a surprise, don't you? Then in September, I hope, we'll have the Families Health and Wellbeing Service from 2024, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. Is that secure? Excellent. Then in September, the Section 75 Agreement for Adult Social Care Assessments and Case Management and Occupational Therapy in Staffordshire. What a mouthful that is, brought to you by Councillor Jessel. Then Adult Social Care Reform Implementation. Good luck with that one, Councillor Jessel. Good to go with that, I presume. Now, the highlight of the September meeting has to be the award of the approval for the framework agreement for the provision and installation of PVCU windows, aluminium doors and ancillary non-domestic.
Indeed, Chairman. And another example of absolute best value and good contract management, Chairman. Look forward to bringing that in September.
I think your Cabinet colleague, Councillor Wilson, is literally quivering in anticipation. Again, in public, we've got the Multiply National Numeracy Programme brought to you by the Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White. And then moving into private in September, Healthy Lifestyles Contract brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel. Into October now, we've got the Integrated Performance Report Quarter 2, 2022-2023, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources and myself. And then in private, we've got the Family Hub Model brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. And that's the forward plan of key decisions. The next item on the agenda is for me to move exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated below. It's moved.